What's your ghost story? This is my mom's story, but she is completely sane and I believe it. My parents went to South Carolina for a wedding. They stayed at some old plantation bed and breakfast spot. She was sleeping when she woke up all of a sudden. She had her cell phone plugged into the wall and was on her nightstand. There was a notification on the phone, so it was blinking. The female ghost was dressed in a full-on old formal dress and she was fixated on the cell phone blinking light and was walking toward it. My mom said, "It's okay, it's just a phone." The ghost turned and made eye contact with my mom, then disappeared. I was around 10 years old and living in San Antonio. I got back to the apartment first after school. About 5 minutes of being in the place alone, I saw on the reflection of a mirror an older man in a tuxedo was in the kitchen. I flipped out and ran to my room and grabbed a bat. I waited 10 minutes before coming out. I locked the door when I got home and never heard the door open for someone to leave. I didn't tell anyone about it. Fast forward 6 years. I was watching Ghost Hunters with my family and my mom asked if I remember the old man in the tux. Crazy stuff. My dad's story, not mine. Early 1980s, he is working a summer job at Yellowstone National Park, Wyoming. One day he and his friend Mark hiked up to the top of one of the mountains. They set up their tent inside an Indian pit, a man-made hole dug out by Native Americans hundreds of years ago. The Indian pits were either used as hunting blinds, or spots where young braves came to for their vision quest. Late in the night, my dad wakes up and has to use the bathroom, number 1. He crawled out of the tent, out of the pit, and went walking a respectable distance away from the tent. Suddenly he felt a hand on his shoulder pull him backwards. My dad calls out, "Hey Mark, what are you doing?" He turns around, turns on his flashlight, and there is nobody there. He shines the light at his feet, and discovers that his next couple steps would have taken him directly over a steep cliff. He did his business and hurried back to the tent. The next morning the two friends are waking up and his buddy says to him, "I know this sounds crazy, but I woke up in the middle of the night and I swear to you, there was an Indian man standing outside our tent." Whatever really happened that night, my dad is alive, he met my mom in Yellowstone, and here I am writing this story to you today. When I was in 5th grade once I forgot to put my school uniform in the laundry basket, so the next day I needed for school it was dirty. I went to have breakfast in my pajamas while I was thinking how to tell my mom I didn't have my uniform clean. When I came back to my room there was a woman I have never seen before, in her 40s, brown dress, dark hair, ironing my uniform. I blinked and she was gone. I would have assumed I hallucinated the whole thing, but my uniform was there, clean, dried and ironed and ready for me to use. And it couldn't have been ironed by anyone else because my parents had breakfast with me and my sister was a baby. I posted this somewhere else so I just copied the text. This one time when I was little I was laying in bed with my right ear buried in my pillow. I am suddenly jolted awake by this roar that sounded like it was going directly into my right ear. I woke up startled and confused and began scanning my room for anything as my mind was almost full panic mode. When I looked to my right I saw this little boy standing next to me. He was glowing blue, but that wasn't the first thing I noticed about him actually. He looked sad and I remember feeling bad for him. After a minute I tried to lean closer to him and even muttered out a faint "hey," but as I did he disappeared. A few days later I told this story to my mother, who then informed me that the people who owned the house before us had a son who died when he was 5 in a car accident. However, it wasn't near the house. I should also note now that our house was renovated since we moved in and a second floor was added. My current theory is that the boy finally found his way back home and realized that his old home was gone. He came to me because I was the new boy of the house. Whenever I get sick, I get the same nightmare over and over. Background story: my room has a bed with a metal bed frame and I'm a very messy person. Anyways, so, when I get a cold or the flu, I get the same dream of a scary lady who seems to be in her 30s with very tangled black hair, fungus-covered skin and glowing silver eyes sitting on my bed frame. I can't move and she's just sitting and watching me for hours. She never moves, just sits there. Then towards the end, she becomes me and I'm looking down at myself. Well, one time I was extremely sick and all I could really do was sleep. So, one of the times I went to sleep, I woke up in the dream or in real life, I really don't know, and a gargoyle was sitting on my chest holding me down to where I could only use my eyes to look around. I was forced to look at my closet, which was very messy when I went to sleep, and it was exactly how I left it. The socks on the floor were exactly where I left them. The only difference was there was a 7 feet tall demon-like thing in my closet with yellow eyes, big claws, red wings with spikes and a dragon-like head. It walked closer and closer to me until I woke up screaming. I told my dad about this days later and he said he had the same dream years ago. It was creepy because we both described the demon the same way and my mom confirmed that this was exactly how he described the demon years ago. The only difference was that in his dream the demon tried to drag him underground. My bio dad passed when I was 4. My mom and him were separated, so I spent my weekends with him at my grandma's, his mom's. After he passed I still continued going there on the weekends. One night my grandma and I were laying in bed and she said, "Don't forget to say a prayer for your dad, she's Catholic." I guess I perked up and stated, "I talk to my dad every night, Grandma. He comes and visits me." She asked me what he says to me and I told her he says that he loves me and to be a good girl for my mom. She had to roll over to hide her tears. She said I spoke so matter-of-factly that it completely caught her off guard. My dad passed away when I was just 8 months old. When I started talking, I would tell everyone that I see Daddy. My mom would even walk in on me talking to my daddy in the crib. Strange thing is, my mom never taught me the word daddy since I wouldn't be needing it. To make things weirder, when I was 4 years old, I came downstairs and told my mom that Daddy had come to visit me. I told her that he was coming to get Grandma and take her with him. Not even an hour later my mom gets a call that my grandma passed away. My dad died a month ago very suddenly. We're native people so we believe in the spirit world. Little weird things happened throughout the week of his funeral. After we buried my mother's and his ashes together as they wished, we saw 3 rainbows. Remember the double rainbow guy? I was 3 times full of joy as he was. We went back to my uncle's to relax. The door to their lower patio blew open. We all looked at each other. We woke up the next morning and fresh snow had fallen. It was very early and no one would have been walking around. We saw 2 sets of footprints in the snow in a circle. This is way up north so people aren't just walking by. What made me happy was it was 2 footprints. My dad had lost a leg in 2013. I was glad to know he had gotten it back. I was around 7 to 9 at the time, sorry for lack of memory, I don't remember much, and my cousin came over. She was a perfectly normal person but she claimed she could see ghosts with her own eyes. As an 8-year-old I thought she was trying to scare me. She then told me she wasn't lying and my dog was right next to me at the time. She was a golden retriever so she was pretty heavy and she would need a lot of force to move, and she says, "Cover your eyes and don't look at the dog. I see a ghost on top of it," and I was a little scared but didn't believe her, until I saw with my own eyes my dog aggressively be dragged down the hallway and put in the air, flipped on her back, and was repeatedly being scratched. As I was seeing this I was running to my mom screaming and my cousin got my dog and she ended up having scratches all over her stomach and I was afraid of my cousin from then on, and whenever she said don't look I trusted her. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more.